Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Steve Y, the Fix-It Guy. I'm Steve Yakshi, and for this edition we're in the bathroom to replace the bathtub faucet and the shower head. What I'm about to show you could save you well over $1,000 in plumbing costs. Our faucet's not regulating the hot and cold water very well and is starting to show some age, so it's time to replace it. So let's get to it. The replacement faucet I've chosen is Moen's Banbury model in a Mediterranean bronze finish, which as you can see pretty well matches our existing bathroom sink faucets. To remove the lever from our old faucet, there is a set screw up in here, and we're going to use an Allen wrench to get up in there and loosen it, and then we'll be able just to pull this handle off. Once we have the arm off, we can just unscrew this, and then we can take the plate off. The next step is to remove the spout itself, and we'll just turn that counterclockwise and we'll get that off. Here we go. We removed the panel to get access to the back of our existing faucet. What we're now going to need to do is remove this block. I'm going to loosen these two wing nuts, take out these 4 screws right here and remove this block so we can see what we got. With the block removed, we can now see the back of our existing faucet. If you notice, the connections are made using female threads. Our new faucet, though, has male threads, but fortunately, our copper lines will fit right in here and we'll be able to solder these together in order to connect directly to this faucet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these copper lines using a tubing cutter, and then we'll solder in couplings and we'll make these connections to the new faucet. In order to install this new faucet, we need a few items. Keep in mind we're dealing with 1/2-inch copper tubing, so we've got a length of copper tube. I also have 4 1/2-inch couplings with stops. You see the ridge there. That just keeps the tubing from going more than halfway in. We've got 2 inputs and 2 outputs from the faucet, so we need 4 of them. We've got 2 elbows, but also I have another elbow if we need it. This can fit directly into the new faucet and be soldered. We also have a small tubing cutter, fit in tight spaces. We have our wire brushes in order to clean the copper tubing. We have lead-free flux, lead-free solder, and then we have our propane torch. Our new faucet is the same width end to end as our old one. So what I want to do now for this side is to measure the length of copper tube I'm going to need to cut in order to make this connection. I'm measuring 1.5 inches, and keep in mind that a 1/2 inch of tube will go into the new faucet as well as a 1/2 inch will go into the elbow. So we need a 2.5 inch piece of copper tube. For this side, I'm going to use our elbow that's able to go directly into our new faucet and to make this connection, and we'll just solder it to this tube. This will be our setup for all the connections. This is the back of the faucet. The front is actually what you'll see in the bathtub. On this side, we're going to have our elbow going directly into the faucet. This side will have a length of tube as well as our elbow facing down. And then for our shower head, we'll have a length of tube and a coupling that'll connect to the tubing that's already there, and we'll have this same configuration for the spout down here at the bottom. I've cut the water off to the house, and I've opened this faucet here. Because this bathtub is upstairs, I've opened several faucets downstairs as well. The idea is to drain the water out of these 2 lines here before we cut them. Using my small tubing cutter, I'm going to cut the tubing here, 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 and here, as close to the faucet as I can. I'd rather have too much tubing and have to cut some more than not have enough. Before we go soldering any tubes to the new faucet, we need to remove this assembly so the plastic doesn't melt. That assembly costs about $38. That's the last thing we want to have happen. So we're going to remove this clip, and then we'll gently get it started, and then we will pull this assembly out of here. And now all we have to worry about, all we have to deal with is the brass. We've fitted everything in place. I did go ahead and solder these fittings into the brass down in the garage. It was just easier to do that there. but then brought it up here and fitted everything before we soldered. And it's a nice fit. We're in the middle of our hole, and so we're ready to solder this and button her up. I've cleaned all our joints and put on flux, so it's ready to solder. But before we actually turn the flame on, I put in these flame protectors. This one here I've had for a long time. I don't even know where you could get this one. This one here, I got at Home Depot, made by Oatly, and it's about $15. But what this will do is protect the wood and the plastic from the heat. Now, soldering copper lines is not as daunting as one might think. I've provided a link here to a short tutorial I created to show you how to cut the tubing with a tubing cutter as well as how to solder it. We've finished soldering our joints and we're letting it cool down because we have to put that plastic assembly back in the faucet before we turn the water back on. Turn the water back on, and as luck would have it, we have no leaks. So it's time to move on to the next step. As you can see, there's no wall to support this faucet. So we're going to reuse this board, which is why it was there in the first place. But these mounting holes here are not going to match the mounting holes on our new faucet. So I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to re-drill those. But first we need to remount this board. With the board remounted, I'm going to take a old pencil that I modified to fit in these holes, and I'm going to put them through the mounting holes and mark the board to know where to drill these holes. And we'll take the board off, drill it, put it back on. We finished mounting our new faucet to the old board. Now we're going to finish the assembly. The first thing we'll put on is a stop tube, and this is what stops the lever arm when the water's turned off. And then the next thing we'll put on is the Beady Plate. That goes on with 2 screws. So we just got the screws, good and snug. You don't have to super tighten them. Just make sure they're snug. With the plate secured, the next thing we'll do is install our key stop, and that just fits in here like this. And then we'll attach our temperature limit stop. And I'm just going to set it slightly to the right for the time being. But we'll turn the water on and see how hot it gets. If it gets above 120, we'll want to rotate this to where we limit the temperature of the water to be 120. We don't want the lever to get to an unsafe hot water condition. Next, we'll put on the lever handle adapter, and that just goes to the left of the stop. And then we'll secure that using a Phillips head screw. Next, we're going to install the lever handle facing down using a set screw and an Allen wrench. And they will go right up underneath here. We'll get that snug, and we're done. Now it's time to install our spout. In preparation for doing that, I put some plumber's putty around the hole that our tubing comes through, and I've put Teflon tape on the threads of this connector. And at this point, we can now just screw this on. And make sure it's turned the right way when we finish, and we're done. So we've removed the old shower arm, and we cleaned the threads on the connector here. So now we're ready to install the new shower arm. We're going to put the long end into the wall and have the short end angled down. And I'm going to put about 3 or 4 layers. So I'm going to wrap it around 3 or 4 times to make sure we've got a sufficient amount of Teflon tape for when we put this in. And then once we're done, you can simply pull it and then clean it up. Now we're ready to install. So now to install this, we're just going to get it started, turning it clockwise till it gets nice and tight, nice and snug. And then we want to make sure that we've got it aimed downward. We should be good to go. So the next thing we'll do is we'll just install our flange to cover up our hole. There we go, that looks a lot better. This is our shower head that we're going to install. And because we have a washer in here, we're not going to need to put Teflon tape on the threads on the other end of that shower arm. We finished installing our shower head, and we just made it hand tight because we got that washer in there. It'll seal just fine. And of course, we're able to change the direction since it's swiveled. So we'll turn the water on. It's coming out of the faucet pretty well. We'll test the diverter to the shower. You see our shower's going well. All right, so we're gonna go back behind here and just make sure everything's still dry. And if so, we'll put that panel back on and we're done. Congratulations. If you hired a plumber to do this job for you, it would be somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. With a little investment in the tools you need to do this job, it'd be well worth it, and you'd still save well over $1,000. So I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please hammer that like button. And if you really think I nailed it, please subscribe, and I'll be sure to answer any comments. Thank you for watching.